Hey travelers, well, continuing on our theme of food and travel, today we are going to take it down to the kitchen and we are going to make some spicy pineapple salsa. So let's go and check it out. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on future videos.
Hello, I'm Dean, and today I will be making pineapple salsa, and then after that I'll be making a pineapple jalapeno habanero hot sauce that's kind of a jam as well. This is our victim, and we'll start work on cutting it up right now. I find it easier to start at the top and then just slice down each side, trying not to lose too much product. This was a fairly large pineapple, so it looks like we're going to unfortunately lose a certain amount of it. I'm going to have to do some trimming once I've got this done. Well, this goes into our handy green recycling container so that it can get sent to the dump and then get turned into renewable natural gas, which then runs the waste collectors instead of using diesel. All environmentally friendly. So what I will be doing is barbecuing the pineapple, and when you heat it up and get a bit of sear on it, it tends to bring out much more flavor once it starts to... Oop. Try not to lose my hands here. Okay, so pretty big pieces. This guy needs a little trim. Right, and we'll go outside in a minute, turn on the barbecue and start burning the pineapple, or heating it up. So it's just starting to rain, but we're going to push on anyway. I'm going to cook up the pineapple, as I said. Haven't cut out the core, which a lot of people do normally. What I find is when you cook it, it does tend to soften up quite a lot. And then later on, when we blend the pineapple in with everything else, it doesn't remain hard anymore. So that's one of the reasons for not cutting that piece out. Okay. And it is raining for sure. But we are in BC, so that's to be expected. These darker pieces are slightly riper than the rest of it, so these will be even sweeter once they've been cooked. So I'm going to play a little bit. We have a side burner, which is actually for searing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this token piece, and actually once it's warmed up, we'll sear it on the side burner just to see how it comes out. So I had the barbecue get up to about 450 degrees to start with. The idea there is so you get a nice sear right away onto the pineapple. Cooking, I imagine it'll take about 15 minutes to do this, to cook it. I want to make sure that the heat gets through it, but not too fast. If you cook it too fast, then it it ends up staying quite tough because it's not completely ripe. So then we'll, as I say, with this test piece on the other burner, we'll see how long that takes. Okay, we're going to have another check. So on the, what do they call it, this meat sizzle, this one's coming along really quickly. And I don't know if you can see here, the moisture is coming, it's coming out of it, which is good. So it's really loosening up or getting juicy. We'll put this back on and cook it some more. So the test piece on the sizzle grill, we're going to move to the main barbecue. It is has a lot more intense heat coming from that sizzle grill, and I want the juices to slowly move through the piece of pineapple rather than it basically drying out too quickly. That's looking well done. So one of the reasons I'm making the pineapple salsa and hot sauce is we've traveled extensively in the Caribbean, and they always have such vibrant flavored hot sauces. And I find that really most that I can find up here in Canada are usually kind of Louisiana style hot sauces. So very vinegary, and they lack a certain flavor. And it's always nice to have the flavor and then followed by the heat, which is what a lot of the fruit-based hot sauces end up tasting like, or the experience that you get from it. I think we'll take these inside now, and because we're in BC, it started out, it was raining when I started, and now it's super sunny. So I'd like to be out here longer. But I guess we'd better go in and crack on. Oops. And I guess I could have turned the barbecue off completely before burning myself, but I'll do that in a second. So I'm going to start off with the salsa. The pineapple's over here, cooling down. Going to chop up an onion and going to use these small cherry tomatoes. So you should use one of these plastic pieces on top of the cutting board. It saves the cutting board. Once you start getting tough into the cutting board, you end up scoring it, and when you're using other products, meats and fish and chicken, it can then seep in. This is supposed to be for fish, but they all get bleached, a bleach and water solution after I've finished cooking and cutting. And again, just saving the proper cutting board. This onion I'm going to use in the hot sauce, and I will be, because we're going to blend it up, I don't need to chop it down as much. So, and also I will pan fry it. Again, the idea is to get it caramelized. So I'll be adding another onion to that in a minute, but thought I'd just cut it up while it was there. Right, now I'm going to put this into a bowl and then move on to the tomatoes. So I'm actually going to prep this onion as well for the hot sauce. I'm going to chop it up right now, and then I'm going to put the onions on into a frying pan and let them cook a little bit in some olive oil or butter, just so that they then caramelize, and we can kind of kill two birds with one stone. What you can do is you can have another container, and with things like the onion, any of the vegetables you cut up, carrots, onions, celery, is you can kind of reserve them aside, and then you can actually use them to make stock out of, instead of just casting them aside as we are today. We've got about, I don't know, a gallon of stock in the freezer right now, which we're not going to get through at this point in time because we're getting into spring, so all of a sudden making soups and stews and that type of thing tends to drop down on the menu list. So just going to put a little bit of olive oil into the frying pan and then heat it up slightly, and then we'll get the onions in there. And as you can tell, we're cooking with gas, and gas is the best thing you can cook with. The reason gas is good to cook with is because you get a direct heat right away, and it's constant. Rather than with electricity, it obviously has a thermostat in it and heats up and cools down, depending on what temperature it's reached. Whereas the gas is a constant heat, and you can control it immediately by turning it up and turning it down. So be careful when you put the onions in. If oil is too hot, obviously it's going to kick back and splatter. Not a bad sound. The smell is divine. It's just like going to the fun fair and where they're cooking hamburgers and they've got the onions on the side, and the smell just wafts and carries, and yeah. Okay, so I pre-washed the tomatoes, and what I'm going to do is just quarter them, half quarter, eighth them, and I'll go straight into the salsa. There we go. Let's make them a bit smaller, shall we? So while I'm cutting these up, the smell of the onions is making me very hungry. So maybe we won't have salsa tonight, we'll have hot dogs. So there we are. I'm going to actually add a few more tomatoes, so you don't want it too oniony. So in between cutting the tomatoes, I'm just going to have a quick look at the onions as they're cooking. Flip them over a bit. Yeah, the next thing the internet has to be able to do is give you smells. They're glistening nicely, warming up, and you can just softening up really well. Okay, right, back to the tomatoes. So I'm going to add a little bit of jalapeno to it, just to give it a little kick, because I like everything with a little kick. We'll reserve that. And I'm just going to cut these up as small as I can, so that they're not overpowering in any way. So I will be leaving the seeds in. There's not too many in this portion of the jalapeno. They're usually more down the back end, you can definitely de-seed the jalapeno before you cut it up. Obviously that's where a lot of the heat comes from, but just the amount of jalapeno we're putting in is minimal in my opinion. Others maybe not, but it shouldn't affect the flavor too much. I will put in, again, a small clove of garlic. I'm going to chop that up as tiny as I can, and we'll put that into the salsa as well. In the meantime, I'm going to have to look at the onions again, because I can hear them crackling away. So they're browning off nicely. Turn that down a bit. And a little help here. Okay, so I'm going to just get a small piece of garlic here. We have this funky little tool, which we purchased one year at a home show or something or other, and supposedly it's the best way you can, I guess, I would say grind garlic up, or just turn garlic into a quick paste. I seem to recall they said it's better when it's wet. So a little bit of water in there. As I say, I seem to recall when we bought it, they said it's better if it has a little bit of moisture. And then all we're going to do is just go around, and it's kind of groovy. And there we go. That's pretty much it. So we're just going to mix it all together. And then, of course, I've forgotten the key ingredient, which is the pineapple. So I'll cut that up and put it in now. So what I'm going to do, the highly colored, the yellowy pieces, I don't know if that'll come through on the video or not, but this piece is a lot riper, and so it'll be much sweeter. I'm hoping that those flavors will carry over into the salsa. I'll stir that in. I think we're going to choose another couple of pieces just to thicken it out a bit. Okay, let's do this. Just chop it up. And a quick bit of quality control. Nice and sweet. And I'm going to rush over to the onions again. See how soft they are now? So they are caramelizing quite nicely. They can be very sweet, which will add to the flavor of the hot sauce jam and cut some of the heat just slightly. So we'll turn that off for now and just let it sit. And then we'll finish mixing the salsa. All right, that's that. Now you can add salt and pepper to it if you like. So get a spoon, try it and see if you like it. I'd be more prone to adding pepper but not salt. I'm trying to cut back on eating too much salt, even though I eat chicken wings all the time, so it's kind of a bit hypocritical, but if I can contain it slightly here, I can have another chicken wing later. Okay, so I guess the true test is sampling it. Just try and get those little bits of green. Obviously it's a jalapeno. Make sure they're all over the place or mixed up well in. Okay, let's make sure we get a little bit of everything. So we've got some tomato, some onion, some pineapple, some jalapeno, and hopefully mixed in is a little bit of garlic as well. So you can taste everything. The tomatoes just have that little bit of acidity, obviously the onion flavor, just a mild piece of heat, and then the pineapple comes through quite sweet. So it's quite a flavorful salsa. You can make it way quicker than we did, maybe take you about 15 minutes at the most, and then if you include also the pineapple cooking time. You don't have to cook the pineapple, that's just an option, something I like. You get I like the seared flavor of the pineapple, where you get a slight bit of burn to it. So there we go. Next we'll move on to the hot sauce. So the next steps will be to chop up the peppers, the garlic, the pineapple, half of the onions will get chopped up, and blended together. Half of the onions will then just stay the same size they are, and then we'll put it all into a pot and cook it down. And we'll put a little bit of rum in there, just to give it a little of the Caribbean flavor. The rum is from Nicaragua, actually, so it's actually from Central America, not the Caribbean, but it's still made with sugar cane. This is something that we picked up in Saint Martin. We had 3 other bottles with different flavors to them. This is the only one we've got left. It's a banana ketchup. We had, I think, a black pineapple, and I can't remember the other 2, but they're kind of glutinous, which is what I'm aiming for at the end of the day with this hot sauce. And we can, or you can have that on anything you like, even for breakfast. So what I have here is some habaneros, which I grew a couple of years ago, and the crop was amazing. I had so many. but I just couldn't use them all up, and they are really fiery peppers. So I ended up freezing them, and they last quite well in the freezer. The only thing is when you do defrost them, they end up being very soft. And what I found is that they're really best used in cooking now, rather than having them in a salsa or something like that, something that is just fresh vegetables or fresh fruits. Okay, so I'm going to coarsely chop everything because we are going to stick it in the blender here, and that way I don't have to be as fine tuned when we're cutting stuff up. Now, I guess I'm a bit cavalier about this, so I don't usually use gloves when I'm cutting peppers up, but if you would like to, feel free to. And in the, I guess, the trend of today, make sure you wash your hands, but that's more of a safety thing in case you go to the washroom after cutting up the peppers and you've forgotten to wash your hands. But it's also just a good habit as well. Again, I like to keep the seeds in, keeps the heat. The idea of a hot sauce for me is for it to be hot. If you like a milder version, definitely you can remove all the seeds. Or you could even save some and start growing them. They should grow inside the house, and then sometime around about once you get a little tree growing around about the end of May, early June, you can then transfer them outside. One thing to, I guess, be aware of once we start cooking is that when you do start cooking or heating up peppers, they tend to put a fair amount of, I don't know, heat or spice into the air, so that you know, I've done this before, and we've had people come into the room and they start choking because of the amount of heat that's literally in the air once you start cooking it, and it starts, I guess, evaporating and turning into moisture. Right. This is some pineapple I cooked a while ago, and when I was looking at and froze it, when I was looking at what we have here, I was a bit concerned we don't have enough to influence the flavor the way that I want to, so I'm just adding this in. The other thing I do is I will cook up pineapple and then just have it in the fridge and have it for breakfast.
What's the spice you're going to use?
So I have a little bit of allspice here, the flavor of the islands. So we're going to add that in as well, just a little bit to give it just a slight subtle hint. Okay, let's start. We'll put this in to the blender, the wazzer, as Jamie Oliver would say. I think it'll fit, but we'll kind of do it in chunks in case it doesn't, because we can also do 2 lots, because we are going to combine it all in the saucepan in a couple of minutes. And I put about that much in. What I am going to do is actually just grab a little bit of lime out of the fridge, just to help it loosen up as it's blending. The lime will act as, what's the word I'm looking for? A preservative, or you can use vinegar. and obviously we'll change the flavor profile somewhat. And what I will do now is a little taste test just to see if it's too overpowered with one flavor or another. Yeah. If it's too spicy, then we're out of luck because we don't have any more pineapple today. So it does have a hit when you start eating it, but there's a lot of flavor in there. Yeah, so you kind of get the pineapple up front, a little bit of the allspice, just this kind of strange wafting flavor, and then you get that nice slow burn down the throat. So I'm going to chop up the peppers because I want them small, and then we'll put it all into the pot with a bit of rum and cook it down. I don't want them too small. I kind of want them to, as I say, kind of be like a jam, but with a different kind of texture to it. Combine the ingredients into the pot and put them on the stove to cook it up a bit. I don't know. Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
So I've been asked why I'm doing that, and I just want to. It's just part of, I guess, creating stuff. You get an idea, and so I make something similar to this normally with just jalapenos, onions, and cumin, and leave it as a relish, just like that. Once in a while, I will heat it up just to see if there's a flavor difference. And what I'm looking for is a change in consistency when we cook the raw vegetables that we have in here, the raw onions, and well, I guess it's really just the peppers that are raw right now. But I want them to soften up as well. Once you cook it, it'll be much softer, and again the sugars should combine and I guess make the sauce or the jam. I guess the flavors will integrate together better once it's cooked. Turn this on again. Going to mix it up with the onions, but won't blend it up. Medium, and we'll let it stew a little bit, and then we'll come back and try it in about 10 minutes. Right, so it's been cooking for about 10 or 11 minutes right now. Gonna have a little look in it and poke around and just see how it's going. Turn it down just a touch. Don't want it to burn on the bottom. It's coming along well. Now we're going to just, I know it's hot, so I'll just take a little bit and blow it, and then we'll try it. So with cooking it, I find it actually brings the heat down a bit. So it's not such a sharp, like stabbing. It's just a kind of gentle, just kind of flows through the mouth, and then just warms it up nicely. So I'm going to leave it cooking for a little bit more. Some of the peppers are still slightly crispy. I don't want them to soften up slightly, just a bit more. And so maybe give it another 5-6 minutes and we'll come back and have a look. Meanwhile, we're going to go back to watching Scott's virtual, what is he doing? A virtual dinner party online. So we'll get back and see Scott.
And what channel is that?
That's Scott Dawson Travel. So I think he's doing, just about every day he's doing a virtual dinner party where he cooks and he's videoing it and chatting along. So quite interesting. You're learning lots of tips and tricks from him. Okay, so it's maybe 7-8 minutes later. We're going to have another little stir and a little taste test. I have to admit that after the last taste test, I went and got the rum, actually a different rum, something that we have which is a lot sweeter, and I put a couple of ounces in just to sweeten it up a bit, and just for the sugar content as well.
Because you normally use brown sugar.
Yeah, it's pointed out that normally I would put brown sugar in, but the cupboard is bare, so we had to improvise and use rum, which I guess is okay, but it's a bit of a waste of rum. So my mouth's becoming used to the heat because I've had 2 or 3 tastes of it, but I can still feel it going through my mouth when I take a spoonful. And just at the top of my mouth I can taste the sweetness of the pineapple, and also the allspice is fading right now, but I think once it cools down it'll come back a bit. So fresh spoon, and we're gonna let the camera person taste it so that they have a clean palate and they can give an opinion of how hot it is.
Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this little slightly different foray into travel and food, but we're going to try to keep things interesting and do a little bit more food stuff this week. I'm considering also doing a Bahamian macaroni pie recipe later this week, so stay tuned for that. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give us a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out. I'm going to do a sample of the recipe, post that down below, so if you're interested in trying to create this on your own, you can get a sense of what we've done here. Dean doesn't usually do recipes, it's a bit of this and a bit of that, but you can just test as you go and make sure it works for you. So let's give this a try. Dean does tend to like spicier food than I do, so I'll just get a smaller bit here. And let's see. It smells lovely. It's very fruity, but you can get the sense of the spice there. So yeah, you can definitely get this sweetness of the pineapple. And he's lying to you when he said it's not that spicy. But it's not bad. By cooking it down, it actually does temper the habanero heat a little bit better. But that's lovely. And as he said before, with some grilled chicken or fish, that would be absolutely delicious, or just with some chips, or pretty much anything like Scott and Jason love to do. You could have this with breakfast and omelettes. So whatever works for you, but I hope you enjoyed this and we'll see you next time.